I'm going to try to explain how to put this frame together, mostly because I can't find any place on the internet that told me how to do it. I'm going to start out by disassembling what I have here because I made a mistake in putting this together. So the first thing I'm going to do is take these 4 bolts right here out. They're special. They're cap bolts. I'll put up on the screen which ones they are. And the reason for that is that there's only 4 of them in the kit. This mount here is TPU. It's a flexible plastic, so you need that spread out top of that cap to hold that down. Elsewise, the little bolts will just push right through the hole and ruin the mount. And after you get all 4 out, that just lifts up. That's just the mount for the GoPro. Like I say, it's in a flexible, you can see how flexible it is, TPU, 3D printed. Really nice printed. And that's why you have to use those special bolts. Those also are the 4 front bolts for the top plate. Now, right now I have these other 4 here. So these 4 are different than the front 4. But there's an assortment of these in the kit, enough to where if you're not using that front GoPro mount, you're just going to have nothing there, let's say, then you can just use 4 more of those screws. There's enough of those. And then keep these 4 for if you use that TPU mount. Or you can just put these 4 in the front anyway, knowing they're there for you should you put a TPU mount or otherwise on it. It's all up to you. You get to choose. I am using the GoPro mount, so I definitely will have it there. Some of these are it's kind of stiff. It's inside of a standoff. Well, I guess it's the Loctite on it that's got it that way. There we go. Now I found no markings or anything that designated the top plates, top or bottom, but it did seem like it had a front and a back. Obviously it does. These holes right here hold the camera mount in the front, squeezed in, and that's the 4 holes right there that are where the TPU and the GoPro mount are mounted. And there's 4 other holes. That's it to that one. Whoops. I guess maybe this would be up. Yeah, I'll put that back on there like it's going to show either way with the yeah, maybe I did have it that way. Let's say I did have it that way with the iFlight up, even though, see, the reason we couldn't see it is because I had it covered up with the GoPro holder. So we'll set that one aside. It is marked with an up. And it does have a back and a front. So that's about all we need to understand on that one. The front camera mount is just 4 or 5 pieces. These 2 arms, 2 screws, and a standoff. And that's the way that goes together. And then there's this goes in the bottom plate, this goes in the top plate. That's how that is held in the frame. That's what these square holes here are for. They are to, there you go. It doesn't snap in there or stay in there by itself in any shape, form, or fashion, but with it screwed into the standoffs, it stays in there quite well. So that's also got square holes right here that the bottom ears right here go in. Okay, right now let's talk about the back, because I'm not going to take this apart. The back is standoffs. Now these standoffs are 2 millimeters higher, taller than these 6 up here. So you got 2 different lengths. These are like 20 and these are like 22. Or these might be 16 and these are 18. I'll look at it on the chart while I'm doing the final edit. These are TPU. The red and the black 2 arms are TPU. The GPS holder is TPU. And they just slide down over. There's nothing holding this on except for the fact it slid down over these standoffs. Also, this is slid all the way down to the bottom on these standoffs. Then there's 2 little screws go in from the bottom. And then there's 2 standoffs. You can see them right there. They're smaller standoffs. Right there, and 4 screws, except I only had 3 screws in my kit, so I've got 1 on this side and 2 on this side. Those are also cap screws, again, because this is TPU. You don't want it pulling straight through them. Those 4 screws are cap screws. Now, I had 3 cap screws in the bag and 1 screw self-tapping type for this. I didn't have this one. When I was doing the servos for the Sky Hunter a while ago, I found that these matched the screws right out of the servo kit. So I put those in, but I haven't found a 4th cap screw for this yet. So there's a holder for the GPS. Then there's these 2 arms, 2 standoffs, and normally 4 cap screws. 2 on each side holds that in. And then that TPU just goes down over, just like this top one does. There's another one with dual. I may have this on upside down, or I may want to put it on in another fashion. Depends on how I want the antenna to go up through it. I'm still thinking on that one. So I'm just describing what's mounted on the back standoffs and why there's two other screws I won't be talking about when we're talking about this. And I'm not going to take this off, this assembly back here off this plate, because there's no need to. It is the bottom plate, I'm going to call it. And there are 3 plates actually. There's another plate right here we'll get to here in just a second. So we've got it disassembled that far. Okay, let's look at some stuff. If you look right through there, you can see that this arm, there's part of it's against this top plate, whereas this arm, part of it in there is against this bottom plate. That's because those arms are kind of cut halfway through and have a little ear on them. Now my thinking is that's where I should have put a battery strap through. But you notice my back arms are on the bottom, whereas my front arms are on the top, so I don't really have a slot through there. That's one of the reasons I'm taking this all back apart. So you got 2 plates that squeeze the arms. This is a frame right now. It is really sturdy with those 2 plates and the 4 arms. Nothing from here back has anything to do with it. So forget this is even back here. You see, from right here back, that has nothing to do with this being held together. It's right in here, in this little square right here where it's being held together. And the way that's happening is in this 4 corners, this plate on top has a nut captured in it. You see how that around that screw, you can see a nuts in that carbon fiber captured in it. So those 4 corners screw down with these 4 screws pulling that plate on top down. Now we're going to see real quick here that these screws right here are not. These 4 are not. So let's look at that real quick. Those have standoffs on them. So if we twist this standoff, oops, I did tighten all this stuff down yesterday. Just try to break it all loose here real quick if I can. Those 4. And see, I have to take these apart because these are also, because of the standoff on top of these screws, they are pulling that plate together also. But you'll see why I want to show you this just as soon as I take these standoffs off. Oops, there we go. I'll go ahead and get these back ones off, because you'll see those screws now are free just to come right out of there. They're not in there. They're being held in by a little pressure from the other 2 plates. But you see, those screws come right out. They only hold the plate together. Oops. Of course, that one doesn't want to come out. Well, easily does it. There we go. Those 4 right there. Oops. 1, 2, 3, 4. Don't. Look at those middle 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 that now are out. They only pull the top plate down because the standoff's up here. But these 4 out here are pulled down because of this nuts. Now then, we will go ahead, and I'm not going to take the standoff for the camera off the front up here either on this top plate that's on here now. It's the center plate. Just like I'm not going to take this junk off the bottom plate in the back. There's no sense in me taking these 2 standoffs off this plate. So now we'll take these 4 loose, which is out here. These go really well. Just break them with my driver. And then we can get those out of there real quick. Okay, so those 4 are out. Again, you can see how that has a nut captured in that carbon fiber on this plate. So that shows you which is up on that. But this still doesn't want to come apart. That's because these 4 screws that I actually put in last, that are the place where I mount my flight controller and ESC and stuff, are also pulling down this middle plate, which is a top plate at this moment, is being pulled down by these 4 screws also. So these 4, the outside 4, all pull on that middle plate, and then when you put the standoffs on, these 2, oops, nope, when you put the standoffs on top of these screws through right here and here, and pull them down with the standoffs, they're also pulling the plate down. So you've got 12 screws pulling this top plate down tight on those arms. These are hard to get in and out because they have that extra Loctite on them. But I'm going to try to get this open. I got to scratch my eye there real quick. Try to get this open, and hopefully all the pieces won't fall apart on me too quickly. Let's see what I can do with this, because these are long screws. Yeah. There we go. Now then, I'm going to go ahead and set this down. I'm going to take that arm out. And I'm going to show you what I'm talking about in here. You see how this portion of that arm is cut halfway through. It's not fully, what is this? I think this is 6 millimeters. This little tab that I've got my fingers around right now is only half that, 3 millimeters. And that's the 2 I got out in there. You can see how, like I say, again, let's see if I can, whoops, I can't get this one out yet. Let me take that one out. And I'll show you. And then I'll show you how to put this all back together that might make your life easy. Now, this is just for my build. Because I've got all sorts of parts left over in the kit. But I think that's because this frame can probably go multiple ways. Now then, see if I take this arm out and magically pick up the other one and slide it back in and start to slide that in there. Oops. There we go. That's how it would be on there if it was all screwed in, right? And see, I actually picked up the other arm on you and turned it upside down. That's what's going to have to go on here. You see now how that gap in the middle, those two pieces that are only half the thickness, are butted up together in there, and I do have a gap all the way through. Well, I honestly think that gap in the top, if I'm going to put that strap through there, I think that gap should be in the top and give me the most material. If that strap goes through this slot below this, I want both this plate and the material even on the tip of that arm there to let me pull on as much bulk as I can. So that's what I'm going to do here. So that's the reason I'm taking these see, to make this work, I'm going to have to take this off here and actually put it on this one. I bet will make it work out. Let's see if that does. No, that does not. The front arms were correct the way they were. It looks like. Yep. I want that tab up. So that little skirt, motor skirt, whatever you call it. There we go. So go ahead and get these back two screws out. And it's, whoops, it's the back two that I have incorrect, that were down. So these will have this just swapped on them, and it all put back together after I show you what all is in my hand. Got to keep that top plate there aligned with the bottom one, or it binds the threads. All right. All right. So there's the bottom plate. Now then, I just noticed there seems to be nuts in that. So I made this the bottom because, again, it sort of looks like there's some captured nuts threaded in this. So in my humble opinion, where that looks like a nut and on this side it doesn't, this should be down. Also, there's this hole. It's not a hole in the bottom here, but there is here. I figured that should line up with this hole and continue through the frame. Don't know what it's for. Nothing says which way this is up. Underneath right here, these holes back here are countersunk, but I couldn't find that there was any reason for these screws to have a countersunk hole. So I just went with this being some kind of threaded hole perhaps or something and made that the bottom. I don't know. Nothing told me anywhere on the kit or anything I could find on the internet in the time I spent. I didn't spend a huge amount of time on the internet yet. I'm going to go back and look at a couple of more frame builds and then see if I think I'm right. So now with the motor skirt on the bottom here, you can see that little partial tab is up. Same thing with this one. Our front ones, same old, up, skirt down, up. So putting these on is a good way to know which is which, so to speak. So we have our 4 arms. This one goes over there. This one goes here. This one goes over there. This one goes here. Okay. We have our bottom plate. We're going to put these in there like this. Let's see, those holes line up, those holes line up. These will come in. There you go. So you see these legs all sort of butt together in there. They butt together here, they butt together there when the screws are all in it. One of the problems is getting all this to work. Well, what I found works for me real easily is if I use these 4 outside nuts that are captured in this plate. See, on this side, I thought they would, if they were screwed in from this side, they would pull out, whereas this gives you just a little bit of carbon fiber to keep that nut from pulling through in this direction. So that's why I've got that one up. And see, that goes on like that. Remember, these 4 outside screws bolt down for starters. So what I found is that works best to go ahead and just put those in. So I just took one of my 4, put it through like that. I take the arm, I put it, oops, that's not where it's supposed to be. I put the arm, it's going to rotate now, but that's where that arm should be. Secured down eventually by more than one securing place. And now I'm going to take this and put it together, and I'm just going to start my screw. There you go. It's just started, still flopping around. I'm not tightening it down at all. We're just getting it started. So I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Get my other arm up here. Go ahead and get it in there. Do the same thing on the other side. And all I really want to do here, I can do it with my fingers probably. Let's just get a few threads started. Just enough where that screw doesn't fall out on the floor. We're going to go ahead and grab another one. Let's see, I think it's this one. And it needs to go through to right there. Screw through. Again, this is so easy with it loose. Nothing tightened down yet. And these screws are just the right size to not stick up through the top. Let's see. Oops. You can't let it come around too much. That way that gets behind this leg. So you gotta go ahead and get those in there. Let's see, this last one slides into right there. And I'm just going to tighten that with my fingers. Just, again, just a few threads, because I want all this to stay kind of loose. It's not locked up yet. It's loose. But because those legs are butted against each other in there now, they're not going to rotate far. But they still have a little give. And I need that little give. So, my next screws and stuff can go through. And that's these over here, because these 4 holes right here, 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 and here, this screw just goes through. And that's going to be through the arm again in there. And that's why I want that loose a little bit. I want to be able to shake this around and get those screws. They should just push through there. There we go. There you go. Not quite lined right. But see, they don't really need to be turned. They'll just go through the hole. And then a standoff goes on them. So now we've got these 4 outside kind of holding it. If they were torqued down, they'd be holding it really well. Now we're working on these 4 to hold it together. And it's just a case of the screw will go all the way through. Just the alignment of some of the holes. That's why we're leaving the rest of those screws loose, is because I don't want to get the holes so misaligned. See, that one went in real easy. So that one fell in. If these were real tight, it might get those in a bind. So right now, I'm going to get these standoffs just on there. Hand, finger tight. And there we go. Now then, we need to mount our flight controller somehow in there. So we have these 4 screws, the longest ones in the kit, that go either in the 20mm holes here or in the 30mm out here. If I had a 30mm ESC, I could have made it work with the skirts on this. Now this again, these are so long that they just a pain in the posterior to get through all those pieces of carbon fiber, and they've got Loctite on them. There we go. Now let's look at our slot real quick. Look at that. All them partial tabs are up this time I built it. Now I have all the space on the bottom, and I can put a strap through that. And I didn't have to flail around trying to hold a bunch of arms and such on the 2 plates and try to get the screws started. Just putting those outside ones in first, and letting them be captured loosely, and then doing the other 4, and then coming back and doing the ones I'm doing right now. Starts locking down this set of plates. 2 plates and 4 arms. It's getting all locked together right now. Isn't this exciting? This is one of my best videos. It's actually one of my better build videos. So now I can come back out to the outside ones, and we'll just give them their initial torques down, which this screwdriver doesn't do much. Pretty good screwdriver. And then these 4 here that are on these 4 standoffs right here, I'll have to get a pair of pliers and hold. And now we'll go back through the main ones with a nice little tighten down. I don't plan on taking this apart again. I put it together yesterday, and after I got it together and all the fun I had doing it with no instructions, I didn't want to take it apart. I didn't know how I was going to get around doing the video that I'm doing right now, because I think it's not a hard frame to build, but the way you get it and the instructions you get with it, it's a pain in the posterior. And I felt it deserved a better. This is the way you can put this together. For my purposes, see, I'm using the GoPro, and everything else I'm using is going to work on this frame. Now the outside skirts are not. And I see all those 4 in the center for the flight controller are stacked. The 4 outside that pull the 2 plates together are all torqued down nicely. These 4 that pass all the way through and are torqued down by these, I haven't done yet, because like I said, I need to get a pair of pliers on this part and then go from underneath and tighten them down. But as you can see, that's all there is to it. And I think with the trick of putting 1, 2, 3, 4 screws in first, and then after you've got them, a few threads through them, coming back and putting these all the way through, and then screwing these all the way through and tighten everything down. It's really an easy frame to put together that way. And see, now that's all that's left, and this is going to be simple because I don't have to assemble this, is to make sure the 2 ears are in the bottom of the carbon fiber down there, which they are now. The top plate goes on. Make sure the 2 ears come up through it. Make sure the iFlight label is up. This goes on, and then these 8 bolts. 8 bolts, the 4 cap bolts and the 4 regular ones. Tighten down the top plate and we're done. Now I'm not going to screw down the top plate again, because my next step is to start working with stuff on the platform itself. So I'll need the top plate off so I can mount my ESC flight controller and stuff to these 4 screws right here. Now I've got a camera for this build that was the Josh Bardwell Runcam Phoenix 2 edition, and it doesn't mount in this very well, so I haven't figured that out yet, but I'll show that camera portion for this portion up here when I get to that part. There are some mounting places up here to screw the camera through in from each side, but that particular camera, I'll show you that when we get there. The rear GPS portion I described as I was taking it apart. And again, this part, which is just TPU and TPU is very flexible, very strong. I don't know, this may need to go on this way on top of those standoffs. There we go. No, maybe not. I was thinking that was going to point my antenna up. No, it's not. Never mind. But you can see again how that just pushes down on top of those standoffs. That's all there is to that. So there's not much else about this frame at this point to speak of. I corrected my problem, and I think I did a pretty good Chimera 7 Pro frame build video, because I couldn't really find any out there to tell you what to do. And look at that, a strap really does go through there really nicely. It moves back and forth easily, and it just, I don't know that that is what that was meant for, to tell you the truth, but I just feel in my heart that that part that's a half a arm thick should either be all up or all down together, and I chose to put it all up, like I say again, so that when a strap was put through it and was pulling up on it, it would have the most material between it and the force. So that's why I did that. All right, guys, thank you. I got to thinking about that. Those straps coming up through there like that for holding a battery and the whole thing, they'll just be tearing the daylights out of the ESC wires that's going to be on the ESC right there. So that's probably for if you're going to put a battery on the bottom of your quad. And my understanding is that you can do either battery below or battery above. So that might be much better for battery below. And then maybe the half portion of the arm thickness should be below now, so you've got more. I'm not going to take it apart again. It's not going to do it. So maybe that's not a good strap position for above as much as below. Anyway, it just bothered me after I built it, put it together, and saw that some of the arms were in one position and some were in another. And there's nowhere that tells you what's going on there. So, but you wouldn't even just strap a battery all the way around this frame to hold a battery on top, because of the 6 ESC wires that would be right in here getting pulled and just tore all to pieces. No, no, no. That won't work. So that's the little addendum to today's video. Thanks again.